Chapter 9, Video 1. Today we're going to talk about rhythms originating in the AV junction. So remember, we have the SA node, which serves as the primary pacemaker of the heart, and then we have the AV junction, which is a backup. So we're discussing rhythms that are happening now in that AV junction. With junctional rhythms, these arise from the AV junction. The impulses originate around the AV node, and they travel antegrade to the ventricles and retrograde toward the atria. So instead of these rhythms just shooting straight down toward the ventricle, it may pop back up and go in both directions. So what we mean by that, I'm going to flip over to this slide. These rhythms they can go down toward the ventricles, or they can either go back up toward the atriums. The AV junctional area can be divided into regions such as high, mid, and low, which we're going to talk about later. But right here, just take a peek. You can see high is on the upper end of the AV junction. Mid is this middle dot, midways of the AV junction. And low is this lower area here of the AV junction. Whichever region initiates this impulse will determine the location of the P waves, okay? Junctional rhythms are seen less often than sinus and atrial rhythms. With an AV junctional rate, we can have a rate of 40 to 60. A rate much faster and slower can result in symptoms, which we will talk about. If the impulse originates high in the AV junction, it will arrive at the atria first, and it will write an inverted P wave preceding the QRS. So if the impulse arises here at this top area, this high area of the AV junction, it will travel first, and it will arrive in the atria, and it will write an inverted P wave that is in front of the QRS complex. And the PR interval should be less than 0.12 seconds. If it occurs here in the middle of the AV junction, we will not have a visible P wave. There will be no visible P wave. And then if it originates from the low AV junction, from this area right here, this very bottom dot on the lower side of the AV junction, we will have an inverted P wave following the QRS complex. Okay? So think about it in terms of where the location is. If it's at the top, it's going to the atrium first. We're going to see a P wave, and it's going to be in front of that QRS. If it's in the middle, we're not going to have a P wave. And if it's at the bottom, we're going to have a P wave, but it's going to come after that QRS complex, and it's going to be inverted, okay? So the location kind of determines where that QRS, where that P wave is going to be seen in relation to that QRS complex. The word on the junctional rhythms here, these are seen less often than sinus or atrial rhythms. The heart rates may vary from fast to slow. One thing that we need to remember about these junctional rhythms, in junctional rhythms, they originate in the AV junction, okay? And the AV node is located in the right atrium. The criteria for a junctional rhythm, we can have a regular rhythm or a premature beat with a narrow QRS, absent P waves, inverted P waves following the QRS, or inverted P waves with short PR intervals preceding the QRS. All of that just depends on where this rhythm actually is happening in the AV junction. That is it for this video. It's a quick introduction to the junctional rhythms. Please understand everything that I just told you before we move forward into determining what we're dealing with and what kind of rhythm we're having that's happening in the AV junction. If you have any questions, please let me know.